if you, for example, are the agent working on behalf of your client and they're going over to Germany, you really want to find out upfront, is that German VAT going to be deducted from their fee, or is the promoter willing to add it on? Or how are the mechanics of making sure that they're compliant with all of this? How is that going to actually affect the payment that the musician is receiving in the final analysis? So I think this next slide that we're looking at here is really just a summary of what Sebastian has just said. I'm going to skip along to the next one, which is this issue of being asked for the VAT exemption, and I'm going to let Sebastian explain now in more detail about why that's such a key factor for lots of the promoters in Germany.
Well, so looking back now at this business-to-business transaction from the perspective of your client in Germany, so the promoter or festival. So your client in Germany now has to pay German VAT on top of your net invoice. And now your German client's relationship, so their national relationship toward VAT is important, or kind of comes into place. Because your client in Germany could either be VAT registered in Germany or not. No matter what their relationship toward VAT in Germany is, they still owe German VAT to the German tax office. So if they're VAT registered in Germany, they can get the VAT that they owe because they hired you from abroad refunded from their tax office, so that eventually there is actually no VAT paid. It's a kind of zero-sum calculation. And this is highly likely the case for clients that work in a more like commercial environment. So this is highly likely the case for your standard concert promoter, music venue, or large festival. These clients are very likely to be VAT registered in Germany, meaning that for them, it doesn't really matter, right? They hire you, they must pay German VAT on top of your net invoice, but then they get it refunded immediately so that no VAT is paid at all. The problem is when your client in Germany is not VAT registered. So when they're exempt from VAT in Germany. And this is usually the case in more like non-profit environments, specifically in the classical or contemporary experimental avant-garde music world. So here it's quite likely that your client, the promoter or the venue or the festival, is exempt from VAT in Germany. And that's actually a disadvantage for them when they hire you from abroad, because the fact that they owe VAT doesn't change. They still owe VAT in Germany, but they can't get it refunded because they don't have the privilege to get a VAT refund because of their own exemption. So this kind of group of clients now wants to find a solution so that they don't have to pay VAT, so that your performance becomes cheaper for them, so that they don't have to pay this VAT on top of your net invoice. And there is a solution for this, and this is specifically this German exemption from value-added tax issued according to paragraph 4, number 20A in the German value-added tax code. Now, the interesting thing is this exemption certificate must be issued to you as the artist or the group or the ensemble based in the UK. And if your client in Germany has a valid tax exemption certificate issued to you with your name written on the certificate, it basically means for them that they don't have to pay German VAT anymore, because the German authorities certify that your service in Germany is exempt from VAT in Germany. So this is very beneficial for them, and this is why a lot of your more like nonprofit or contemporary music clients will ask for the certificate. Very similar in the theater and dance world, opera, etc. It's very, very, very important. So this is like more like the general principle. This is how your clients in Germany can avoid having to pay VAT on top of your net invoice. That's why they're so interested in getting it.
And Sebastian, can we,
Yeah.
before everybody gets too excited about trying to find a VAT exemption certificate for themselves, can you just speak a little bit about the criteria that needs to be met, in general terms, in order to qualify for this VAT exemption? Because we know
Yeah.
it's relatively narrow focused.
Sure. So uh, in the past, it was actually only issued for groups or theaters. But since a few years, it can also be issued to solo artists. However, only to a very narrow group of artists. And these are stage artists. So anyone who is on stage, including musicians, but also dancers, opera singers, actors, actresses, etc. Stage choreographers and stage directors. So these are the three kind of artistic activities that can be made exempt based on this certificate. When we look at musicians, it's a little bit narrow and there's a lot of case-by-case decisions. So usually, if you work in the field of classical music, contemporary music, or experimental music, or folk music, I think it's quite likely that the German authorities will say yes to the exemption. There will be no issues. But if you work in more like commercial genres, like maybe very commercial pop music or rock music, it may be a bit trickier. But in this case, it's usually not an issue anyway, because in the pop and rock music world, you usually deal with clients, promoters who are VAT registered. So the issue doesn't really arise. So it's more like an issue in this classical, contemporary, avant-garde field. And just maybe going to the chat, if that's okay, because there's a question in the chat. I'm just going to read it, if that's all right. So if a singer goes abroad to a German opera house as a self-employed person, I assume, the UK singer invoices no VAT. That's correct, because the opera house in Germany is a business. But the German opera house wants to deduct German VAT from their fee and then take off the withholding tax. The opera house will surely be VAT registered. And that's actually not the case, because opera houses in Germany are, by principle, not VAT registered, because they are also covered by the special VAT exemption according to paragraph 4, number 20a. So if you want to perform at the opera house and you want to receive your full fee without any VAT deductions, it can make a lot of sense to actually get this VAT exemption certificate issued to yourself, so that the opera house knows that they don't have to take off any VAT from your negotiated fee.